Rolex, the crown, a name that means precision, prestige, and quiet confidence. But the story of Rolex isn't just about luxury, it's about a century of problem-solving, bold marketing, and watches tested in the real world. From stormy seas to the summit of Everest, from racetracks to boardrooms, this is how Rolex became the most recognized watchmaker on Earth. Our story begins in 1905 in London. A 24-year-old German entrepreneur named Hans Wilsdorf teamed up with his brother-in-law Alfred Davis. Their firm, Wilsdorf and Davis, imported reliable Swiss movements and cased them in elegant British cases. At a time when men still trusted pocket watches and many considered the wristwatch fragile or feminine, Wilsdorf had a different vision. He believed that the future of timekeeping belonged on the wrist, compact, durable, and accurate enough for everyday life. A vision needs a memorable name. In 1908, Wilsdorf registered a short, crisp word that sounded the same in any language: Rolex. Over the next decade, the company built a reputation for precision, earning chronometer certificates that proved their watches could keep serious time. After the First World War, heavy British taxes and import rules pushed Wilsdorf to relocate. In 1919, Rolex moved to Geneva, the capital of high watchmaking, and the brand's modern era began. Rolex won its reputation by solving practical problems. Water and dust were the enemies of early wristwatches. In 1926, Rolex introduced the Oyster, a tightly sealed case that kept moisture and debris out. It was the first truly waterproof and dustproof wristwatch. But innovation alone doesn't win hearts, it needs a story. In 1927, a young British swimmer named Mercedes Gleitze attempted to cross the English Channel. On her wrist, a Rolex Oyster. She swam for hours in freezing water. When she emerged exhausted, the watch was still ticking. The next day, Rolex ran a bold, full-page newspaper ad celebrating the swim and the still-running watch. Overnight, the Oyster became a symbol of reliability. Rolex had matched engineering with narrative, and the world noticed. A few years later, Rolex reinvented how wristwatches were powered. In 1931, the company patented the Perpetual rotor, a self-winding system that uses a freely swinging weight to wind the mainspring as you move. It's the principle that powers most automatic watches today: reliable, convenient, ready for everyday life. After the Second World War, Rolex introduced a new kind of elegance with everyday practicality. In 1945, to mark the company's 40th anniversary, Rolex launched the Datejust, the first self-winding waterproof chronometer wristwatch to display the date in a window at 3 o'clock. It arrived on a new 5-link bracelet called the Jubilee, and later gained the signature Cyclops magnifier over the date. The Datejust distilled the Rolex idea: timeless design, everyday toughness, and a useful complication that just works. The 1950s turned Rolex into the watchmaker of explorers. When Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay reached the summit of Mount Everest in 1953, Rolex timepieces were part of the expedition. That same year, Rolex introduced the Explorer, a simple, legible, robust watch built for the extremes: black dial, bold markers, no nonsense. Also in 1953 came a watch that would redefine a category: the Submariner. Waterproof to 100 meters at launch, with a rotating timing bezel and luminous markings, the Submariner quickly became the benchmark for dive watches. It wasn't designed as jewelry, it was a professional instrument, yet its clean lines and perfect proportions made it a style icon too. The jet age created a new problem to solve: tracking multiple time zones. In the mid-1950s, working with Pan American World Airways, Rolex introduced the GMT-Master. Its fourth hand and two-tone bezel let pilots read home time and local time at a glance. The bold red and blue insert earned the nickname Pepsi, and the watch became a favorite of travelers and adventurers alike. Rolex continued to test the limits of what a watch could endure. In 1960, the experimental Rolex Deep Sea Special rode on the outside of the Bathyscaphe Trieste as it descended to the very bottom of the Mariana Trench, nearly 11,000 meters below the surface. The watch returned to daylight in working order. It was a spectacular proof of concept. A Rolex could survive the deepest place on Earth. Not every achievement was about depth and altitude. Some were about speed. In 1963, Rolex launched the Cosmograph Daytona, a chronograph designed for racing drivers, with a tachymeter scale for measuring average speed. The watch took time to catch on, but photographs of actor and racing enthusiast Paul Newman wearing his personal Daytona turned it into a legend. Decades later, that very watch would sell at auction for a record-breaking sum. The Daytona became the chronograph to aspire to, on and off the track. While Rolex made tool watches for professionals, the brand also built symbols of status. The day date, introduced in 1956, displayed both the date and the day of the week spelled out in full. Crafted in precious metals and paired with the supple president bracelet, it appeared on the wrists of leaders in business and politics around the world. The fluted bezel, the bold dial, the unmistakable bracelet links, the day date became a global icon of success. Through the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, Rolex moved from specialist maker to cultural phenomenon. Early James Bond films featured Sean Connery wearing a Submariner. Photographs of actors, musicians, and athletes with Rolex watches helped cement the idea that a Rolex wasn't just a tool or a luxury object. It was a statement. I made it. Behind the scenes, the brand kept refining the fundamentals. Cases and bracelets became sturdier. Movements became more accurate and more shock-resistant. Rolex developed proprietary alloys for durability and luster. The company introduced scratch-resistant ceramics for bezel inserts, more efficient escapements in its movements, and extended power reserves. All of it served the same purpose: a watch you can wear every day, for decades, without fuss. Rolex also did something unusual in luxury. The company is privately owned by the Hans Wilsdorf Foundation, created by Wilsdorf himself. That structure lets Rolex take the long view. There's no pressure to chase quarterly profits or seasonal trends. The brand invests heavily in research, in tooling, and in quality control, keeping most of its production in-house, from movement parts and cases to bracelets, and even its own foundry for precious metals. The result is consistency. When someone buys a Rolex, they know what they're getting. Today, the core lineup remains familiar: the Submariner for the sea, the GMT-Master for the skies, the Daytona for the track, the Explorer for the mountains, the Datejust for everyday life, the Day Date for pure prestige. Modern versions bring ceramic bezels that don't fade, advanced hairsprings that resist magnetism, and meticulous finishing that stands up to real wear. Yet the designs stay true to their roots. A Rolex from the 1960s and a Rolex from today speak the same design language. Beyond the products, Rolex has embedded itself wherever achievement is celebrated. Tennis, golf, yachting, motorsports, philanthropy. The brand sponsors events and institutions that align with its values: precision, tradition, and excellence under pressure. The crown appears not just in showcases, but at the finish line, at the podium, and on the wrists of people doing difficult things well. So, what explains the enduring power of Rolex? It's the combination of restraint and storytelling. The designs evolve slowly, the engineering quietly improves, and the narrative is always tied to real-world performance. A watch that swam the Channel, a watch that climbed Everest, a watch that reached the ocean's floor, a watch that timed victory laps. Rolex doesn't shout. It simply proves itself, again and again, until the product and the idea become inseparable. More than a century after Hans Wilsdorf imagined an accurate, reliable wristwatch for everyday life, Rolex has become a universal symbol. For some, it marks a milestone, an exam passed, a business built, a dream realized. For others, it's a companion, ready for the ocean, the office, and the years in between. In either case, the message is the same: precision, durability, and timeless style. A Rolex is more than steel and gold, more than dials and hands. It's a piece of living history, a link to the explorers, pilots, drivers, and leaders who trusted these watches when it mattered. From a small London startup to the crown of watchmaking, this is the legacy of Rolex. Thanks for watching. Which Rolex speaks to you the most? The rugged Submariner, the elegant Datejust, the legendary Daytona, or something more understated? Tell us in the comments. If you enjoyed this story, subscribe to Luxury and Legacy for more deep dives into luxury, craftsmanship, and design. Until next time.